A great night of sleep starts as soon as you wake up. So most people start their day. Your body knows how to sleep. It wants to sleep. It's just our minds get in the way. Caffeine has a half-life of about 6 hours. So that means that it's in most people's systems for 12 hours. So that's why having a cutoff with your last cup of coffee or tea or energy drink or whatever has caffeine tends to be helpful for people and their sleep. If you wake up and you feel refreshed, if you feel energized, if you're able to focus and you have sustained energy, that's a good sign that you're getting enough sleep and enough quality sleep.
What if I told you that you could feed your dog food that's not only healthier, but also better for the planet? Introducing Earth Animal Wisdom from the Seed Recipe dog food, crafted with care to be healthy for your pet and gentle on the environment. And this complete and balanced formula is carefully air dried at the optimal temperature to preserve vital nutrients your dog needs to thrive, regardless of their age or size, with pure plant nutrition. This is honestly the best vegan dried dog food we have ever tried. It's so easy to purchase too. You're just going to go to earthanimal.com/switch for good. And then also just simply place switch for good in the discount code box at checkout for 20% off your order. So go run, buy your Earth Animal. All right, now back to our conversation.
Hello, everyone. It's Alexandra, and I'm on my own for this episode, but we are going to have a great show because today we're exploring the power of sleep with Devin Burke, founder and CEO of the Sleep Science Academy and a leader in holistic health. As a teacher, coach, and author of The Sleep Advantage, Optimize Your Night to Win Your Day, Devin has guided insomniacs, high achievers, and countless others to unlock the benefits of deep restorative rest. Through his dynamic sleep recalibrating solution, he transforms nights into a source of renewal and vitality instead of tossing and turning. Devin has also delivered a TED Talk on the ROI of sleep and was named one of USA Today's top 10 coaches of 2023. So, if you've ever struggled with sleepless nights or found yourself wide awake at odd hours, stay with us because this episode is for you. Welcome to the show, Devin.
Thank you so much for having me.
So let's start at the beginning. Just what inspired you to become a sleep expert in the first place? Did you have trouble sleeping yourself?
I'm an incredible sleeper. So much so that my family used to joke, and my nickname growing up was Narco, not for, like narcotic, but narcoleptic, short for narcoleptic, because I could pretty much sleep anywhere. So it is kind of ironic that I do what I do, but it was really through someone else's pain and struggle that I was working with about almost 8 years ago now. And he was looking for a solution. I was doing high performance coaching for very successful people. And this one person, he didn't want to go down the sleeping pill route, but he was not sleeping and it was affecting his performance in every area of life. And so I just started to kind of go down the rabbit hole and discover that there wasn't a lot of good solutions for people that were looking for a holistic and natural way to restore their sleep. And that kind of I just got really interested in sleep. And then I started to get certifications. I started to experiment with some of the tools that I was learning and try new tools, see what would work. And I helped this one person. And if I could help one person, then I could help the millions that struggle with it. So we're not helping millions yet, but we are helping thousands of people across the United States. So that's kind of where it led me into founding Sleep Science Academy and really supporting people with this issue.
Well, being on this podcast, you'll help thousands more. So thank you. I remember growing up, I was in LA for 40 years. So in my 20s through 60. And there was a billboard that said, "You can sleep when you're dead." And so in the 80s, it was really sort of not cool to want to sleep a lot, or people were extolling the benefits of being super busy and super active and actually boasting about how little they slept.
Yeah.
But now people understand the reasons we should be getting good sleep. Can you tell us what good sleep is and how long should we be sleeping?
Yeah, so the answer really depends because our sleep architecture and needs evolve as we go throughout life. So I'll give you a perfect example. If you are an NBA player like LeBron James, for instance, he sleeps about 12 to 14 hours a night. Now, if
Wow.
you're somebody that is not, training all day, is not an elite athlete, you don't need as much sleep. And so, depending on the demands of your mind and your body, depending on your age, your gender, what's coming up for you in your life as far as how much stress you're experiencing, is all going to determine how much sleep you need. When we're sick, for instance, our body wants to sleep. We sleep more when we're sick. And there's a reason for that. It's because that's when our immune system is most active. That's when our body repairs itself. So it really, for most people, the National Sleep Foundation says between 7 to 9 hours. Some
Mhm.
people can get away with less. And it just, again, and that number kind of evolves depending on your life circumstances and what your lifestyle is. So it's hard to put an exact number for people, but I always tell people if you wake up and you feel refreshed, if you feel energized, if you feel like you're able to focus and you have sustained energy, that's a good sign that you're getting enough sleep and enough quality sleep.
Okay. Because I know that when I was a kid, I slept through the night. Then I started waking up maybe in my 20s and 30s to pee once, and then I would go right back to sleep. And now I get up, well, it depends how much I've hydrated, but 2 to 3 times a night, and usually able to get back to sleep, but often not right away. And I know that my mother, who's 88, really has trouble sleeping. What are the reasons that, and I know a lot of people as we age, we have more trouble sleeping. What is that, a chemical reason or?
A lot of reasons. One, for women, more than 60% of women as they go through that menopause stage of life experience insomnia. So hormones definitely have a play. Also, what tends to happen as we age and go through life, we have more experience, we have more stressful circumstances, people die, there's more life underneath our belts. So often we take those concerns with us to bed, or in the middle of the night, our minds are just busy with, thinking about worrying about our kids and our grandkids. And so there's more accumulative experience, and that plays into a psychological role as far as how busy our minds are or can be. Um, and again, also too, it's as we get older, things start to change, right? Everything starts to change. It's part of the aging process. And one thing that does change is your sleep architecture. And so whether that's because you're having to get up to use the restroom, whether that's because you're not as active, whether that's, there's a lot of factors there. But again, depending on where you are in your life journey and what you're experiencing is really going to determine how much or how little you sleep. Because you could be a really active 80-year-old and need just as much sleep as you did when you were in your 40s or 30s. It just really depends.
So what I'm hearing from you is that I shouldn't be asking, am I normal? I should be just looking at how do I feel when I wake up in the morning? And that is the best indicator.
Yeah, you can measure and track it. So now we actually have these great devices that can give us information, feedback around how much and how well we slept. And so if you want to improve something, it's really helpful to track it, to measure it, to look at it. Now, for some people that have insomnia, that actually, which I can share what that actually means, that term, but that can actually trigger worse sleep because you're seeing this data come back and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. And then you go on the internet and you search a bunch of stuff and you just start trying things. And when those things don't work, it stresses you out more. And if you're someone that doesn't have insomnia, if you're just looking to, you have the occasional night where you have a difficult time falling asleep or staying asleep, it's very helpful to measure and track sleep because you could start to see how the decisions you make during the day, how they impact your night, meaning how much caffeine you had, what you ate, did you exercise, did you have a stressful day? You can start to correlate your day with your night. And then you can kind of draw the conclusion as far as, hey, what needs to change in my day to have a better night so that I can have a better next day?
Okay, I want you to just answer this, and then we can go back to the definition of insomnia. how do these trackers, like I've heard about the Aura Ring, and
Yeah.
that's about it actually. But I know you talk about other trackers. So how do these trackers measure our sleep?
Yeah, it's a good question. So it depends on the type of tracker that we're exploring. So most of them use light. Actually, that's one form. But the technology, it's incredible, the technology that are now in these devices. Even the Apple Watch is their sleep algorithm has gotten way better. So Aura Ring, that's what we use at Sleep Science Academy, just because they have a platform where we can measure and track all of our clients' sleep, and it tends to be less invasive and put off very consistent results. But the technology that they're coming out with, like the Whoop strap, there's the Ultra Ring, there's things that even like the Sleep Number bed or the Sleep 8 bed, there's now technology integrated into mattresses and beds. So I look for precision, not necessarily accuracy. So
Mm.
precision, meaning it puts off consistent results. And now, how accurate they are, it's debatable. But I know since I've been, testing and looking at thousands of people's data over the last almost 8 years, that they've gotten a lot better. The technology has gotten a lot better. The algorithms have got a lot better, and they continue to get better. So that's great because that data, we can take that data and it can inspire us to continue to make positive change. So I like getting the data. I like being able to see it because it's kind of like getting a blood test for your sleep. You go to the doctor, you get a blood test. Oh, you have high cholesterol. Now you have options. You could go on some pills, you could change your diet, you could do maybe both. But until you really know what's going on, and before in the past, you really couldn't know what's going on unless you went to a sleep lab. Now it just really inspires a lot more people to pay attention to what they're doing, what they're not doing.
How does light, though? What light from where? Light, what kind
From
of
the
light?
device. Yeah, so I mean the technology in this little ring is
Mhm.
unbelievable. And I don't know everything about the technology in this. I just know that I looked at and have looked at thousands of people's data, and it's consistent and it's pretty accurate.
Okay,
So
but
again,
I would think it would measure maybe heart rate or body temperature,
oh
but
yes, it does. It
like
does.
you said that it meures our light, and I'm not
No, it
clear.
uses light to
Oh,
measure those things like heart rate variability, body temperature. So using light, that's how they're able to gain the feedback of, what is going on with your sleep cycles. Are
oh,
you in deep sleep? Are you in REM sleep? Your body temperature. It's so the actual mechanism in the device, one of the things they use is light. They use a lot of other things to then pull out this data like heart rate variability, temperature, and these things.
got it. Okay, okay, great. And you like the Aura Ring, and you're not paid by Aura.
I am not. Actually, I pay Aura, believe it or not.
That's right.
Yeah, believe it or not. And I've made them millions of dollars and I still pay them. Um, and that says something. And so, again, is it 100% accurate? No. Is a sleep study, if you go to a sleep lab, 100% accurate? No. What you're looking for is consistency and you're looking for trends. And if you can see consistency in trends, then that data is very useful, or it can be.
So you can show where you improve and yeah, over time.
Exactly. And you never really want to look at one night of sleep.
Mm.
You really want to look at several weeks or months. And that really helps you to start to see, how these lifestyle changes or, psychological changes or behavioral changes or all of the above, how that's negatively or positively impacting your sleep and your sleep quality.
Yeah. Okay, so give us a definition of insomnia, and maybe after that, tell us about the different kinds of sleep problems.
Yes. Yeah, so let me see, where do I start? So insomnia, there's different classifications of insomnia. So there's transient, acute, and chronic. So most of us experience at some point in our life transient insomnia, which means we have trouble initiating sleep or staying asleep for maybe a couple of days. If that couple of days turns into a couple of weeks, then it becomes acute. If that couple of weeks turns into a couple of months, more than 3 months specifically, then it becomes or can be classified as chronic. And then there's two types of insomnia. There's onset insomnia and what's called maintenance insomnia. So onset insomnia is people that have a hard time with initiating sleep. Maintenance insomnia is when people wake up in the middle of the night and they have a hard time falling back to sleep. You can have both, and sometimes it comes and it goes, but that's the different classifications of insomnia. The other most popular sleep disorder is sleep apnea, and that is a breathing disorder. And there's a lot of different types of sleep apnea. I'm not an expert in sleep apnea. I am an expert in insomnia. But sleep apnea, essentially, you have stop breathing events for various different reasons. It could be the tongue slipping back and blocking your airway. It could be the structure of your face. It could be, a neurological reason. But essentially, what you're doing is throughout the night, you're having these stop breathing events, which puts a lot of stress on your heart. And so snoring could be a sign that you'd want to check for sleep apnea. If you're waking up gasping for air, you want to check for sleep apnea. If you feel like you're getting enough sleep, but you wake up just completely exhausted and fatigued, that's usually a sign that you want to check for sleep apnea.
Oh, because you're waking up without realizing it.
Exactly.
Right.
And you're not getting oxygen to your brain.
Right.
So, or anywhere else for that matter. So, we last a couple of minutes without oxygen, a couple of days without water. The next most important thing is sleep, and then food and exercise come next. But yeah, getting enough oxygen and the proper amount of oxygen throughout the night and just in general is very, very important for health.
I want to tell you about Fit Vegan Coaching because it's a program that improved my life drastically, and I want the same for you. Fit Vegan Coaching is the world's top whole food, plant-based body recomposition program for those like myself who are between 50 and 80 years young, and it's offering 20 to 25% off if you join right now. Last year, I was in a real rut. I was eating unhealthily and waking up not feeling good. I reached out to Maxim Seguin, who'd been a terrific guest on this program and who's the founder of Fit Vegan Coaching, and I asked for help. Maxim and his team are so kind and non-judgmental, so for the first time in my life, I signed up to follow a program, and it was like a miracle. Through his coaching sessions, webinars, training app, food guides, and the support of others in the program, I transformed the way I was eating and training, and now I feel amazing physically and emotionally. And I really feel comfortable with how I look. And most importantly, I'm able to deal with everything that life throws at me. So if you feel stuck or you want to make sure that 2025 is a great year, go to fitvegancoaching.com for a free consult and 20 to 25% off. I mean, I paid full price for my program, and believe me, it was totally worth it. But wow, 20 to 25% off, that's just amazing. fitvegancoaching.com to change your health and your life for the better. Is there some people call themselves night owls, unable to sleep until the wee hours of the morning. And then I'm a morning person, so my husband likes to go to bed between 9 and 10. And so that's what we do. And I think I've gotten into the habit of that. When he's not around, I do tend to stay up till midnight, though it's true. But basically, I like to get up early. But I have friends who say, "Oh no, that's not me. I cannot do that." Is that a truism or is it just habit?
It's a truism. So there's something called chronobiology, which is essentially your genetic sleep makeup. And so, there are people that the time that's most appropriate for them to start to, initiate sleep is much later than other people. And so it's really great to know what that natural rhythm is. And it's even better if you can honor it. Now, unfortunately, because of the nature of the world that we live in and, most 9 to 5 jobs, that type of thing, it can be very difficult for people to honor their natural sleep rhythms. But in an ideal situation, you would, if you could, let's say you're a night owl and you normally tend to get sleepy or you're awake until about 12, then you'd want to make sure that you had enough sleep. So maybe you wake up at, I don't know, 8 or 9 versus somebody that went to bed a lot earlier because that's natural for their body. And then they're waking up at, let's say, 5 or 6.
Can you train yourself over time to change your chronobiology?
That's a really good question. And I'm not sure. I think that it's kind of like you can to a degree, but if you come into the world and you're 6'5", you have a higher chance of becoming a basketball player than if you're 5'10", although there are 5'10" basketball players. So I think you can to a point. So I think there's certain things that you can do. Our bodies love consistency. Our bodies love rhythm. And so I think there are things that you can do to an extent. And I think it's in our best interest to really honor what we were given meaning like genetically. I think it's in our best interest to honor those things and not to go against, like, you have a natural body weight, for instance,
Mhm.
right? And then if you want to be this big muscly guy, you're going to have to eat a lot of food, and it's putting a lot of stress on your body, and you might be able to gain, 50 pounds of muscle, but you have to eat a certain way, and it's stressful to the body. It's kind of like that.
Yeah. Unfortunately, you're right. The world doesn't allow for people with different chronobiology for the most part. We're sort of an 8 to 6 society, and school, they want kids up, sometimes they have to get to school by 7 or 7:30. So it can be very disruptive, hard on someone, right?
It can. Yeah, and I think as we evolve as a culture and as we evolve as a society, I think that there will be an adjustment. And even, since COVID, with working from home and being more flexible, companies being more flexible with how people work, I have seen some changes in that regards. But for the most part, yeah, it is a little bit difficult if you're not, you know, if your sleep schedule doesn't fit the schedule of society, so to speak. It is challenging for sure.
I want to talk about the things that we do that get in the way of our sleep and the things that we can do to improve our sleep. And then of course, we'll talk more specifically about your program. But I want to throw my twin sister under the bus first. She's a coffee drinker, and she also doesn't sleep well. And I would say she has gone through bouts of insomnia, and I've had, just here and there, I don't sleep that great, but very different. And I've told her, I think you should stop the coffee. And she's like, oh no, I took 23andMe, and I am a fast metabolizer of coffee. And I only drink like whatever it is, 1 cup, and I'm done before noon, et cetera, et cetera. So tell me about coffee, and are there some rules about that if you're a bad sleeper?
Yeah, so there's a chemical in our body called adenosine. And what adenosine does is it builds up to create something called sleep pressure. You could think of sleep pressure as, your body's hunger or desire for sleep. And caffeine blocks the receptor site of adenosine. That's why you feel awake when you have caffeine. And so what can happen, and again, that's great that your sister knows like how fast she metabolizes caffeine, because that does play into when you might stop drinking caffeine. Caffeine has a half-life of about 6 hours. So that means that it's in most people's systems for 12 hours, right? So that's why, having a cutoff with your last cup of coffee or tea or energy drink or whatever has caffeine tends to be helpful for people and their sleep.
So noon is too late if you want to go to bed at 10.
Yeah, yeah, that's correct. Because
Mm,
now it's in your system again, half-life, six
yeah.
hours. In your system, 12 hours. So that means that adenosine receptor site is being blocked for up to 12 hours until that sort of wears off. So the other factor with caffeine, though, caffeine is obviously it's a drug, it's a stimulant. It puts us in a stressed state, believe it or not. It stresses the adrenal glands. So in a stressed state all throughout the day, you're kind of, it might give you energy, it might help you focus, and it elevates the stress hormones, which then the reason why most people can't sleep, it's anxiety and stress. They bring their day into their night. And so if that's elevated throughout the day, because you're drinking too much caffeine, then it's going to have an impact on that stress threshold, which then is going to have an impact on your sleep.
Well, let's go right into that. I know that's a big part of your teachings is managing stress so that doesn't interfere with sleep. Can you give us some tips about how not to bring our day into our night?
Yeah. So one of the things I always tell people is a great night of sleep starts as soon as you wake up. So most people start their day. Our cortisol is a stress hormone. It's highest in the morning when we wake up. Cortisol is not a bad hormone. We need it. For most people, though, they throw off the natural rhythm of cortisol because they wake up and they drink a cup of coffee. Coffee stresses the adrenal glands. The adrenal glands release more adrenaline and cortisol. And then all of a sudden, now again, we're in this heightened stress state for the rest of the day. Not to mention that it's a diuretic and we lose about a liter, sometimes more, water a night for through respiration and through sweat, a whole liter. I mean, that's a lot of water. So the best thing you could do is wake up and hydrate. Hydrate with electrolytes. That would be a much better option than going right to coffee. Wait an hour till that cortisol starts to dip, then have your cup of tea or your cup of coffee. If you can, get outside and see sunlight. It does make a difference. The two things that really control sleep are temperature and light. Most of
Mm.
us spend most of the time indoors under artificial light. It is extremely not natural and has an impact on our circadian clock, which is our timing system for sleep, our timing system for our digestive system, our timing system for our hormones. It's the timing system for your body that gets thrown off.
I've heard somebody say that we don't get enough natural light during the day, and then we have all this fake light at night. So it completely confuses our body.
Yeah. And so what that does, there's something called melatonin, and it's a very hot topic. A lot of people supplement with melatonin, but our body naturally produces melatonin. And how our body knows when to release melatonin is through light, is through darkness, actually. As the sun starts to set, that's the trigger. There's these little cells in our eyes that kind of trigger, okay, now it's time to start to release melatonin. And we're blasted with LED artificial light or a junk light. It's a very small frequency of the wavelength that then just doesn't allow the body to release melatonin. And then people then supplement exogenously with melatonin. Melatonin is a hormone. And then it creates, a whole other cascade of a lot of challenges for people. So I don't want to go too far down that path yet. So that's the first thing. It's wake up in a way that is with light and water. Real simple. Light and water. Then make sure throughout your day that we call it at Sleep Science Academy nexting. We go from the next thing to the next thing. And so if there's not a time in between your transitions, so let's say from one call to another call, let's say from, work to picking up the kids or from work coming into the house. These are all transitionary moments. Most people go through their day from one thing to the next. There's no space. There's no time for rest. Rest leads to sleep. Not only are we sleep deprived, we're rest deprived. So
Mm.
there's not enough mental rest, physical rest, spiritual rest. There's not enough rest in our day. And because there's a lack of rest in our day, people towards the end of the day are so hyped up that it's very hard for their body to come down. It takes a lot, which is why most people use alcohol to kind of take the edge off, come down, have that glass of wine. And I love wine and tequila, but that's usually what happens. People up themselves with caffeine all day and then bring themselves down with a glass of wine or several glasses of wine or a bottle of wine. And it's because their whole day is just this nonstop. It's just this nonstop sort of continuum of activity without enough rest. It's really bizarre, but it's a real big challenge of our time. And so when you realize that and you start to do things a little bit differently, it has a massive impact on your sleep.
What would that entail? Because a lot of people will say, "Oh, Devin, I don't have time
Yeah.
to take a nap, a siesta. My day's just not built for that." What do you recommend for rest in between activities?
Could be 5 minutes of no technology, literally, closing your eyes and just focusing on your breath. Could be that simple. 5 minutes. So let's say after this podcast, you have another one. It'd be 5 minutes, eyes closed, just connecting to your breathing. It could be looking out your window and just noticing the sky and the trees and, just really bringing your attention and awareness to your visual sphere. It could be petting your dog or your cat. It could be giving someone a hug. It could be, I mean, there's so many ways. Resting isn't just taking a nap. Napping, that's great. If you don't have insomnia, that's great to take a nap. But most of us don't have time for that. So anything that's going to be restorative, that's going to get you out of your head and into your body is a form of rest. Walking is great, going outside, breathing, taking a quick walk. That's usually my favorite way of resting is actually taking a stroll, just, 10-minute stroll around the block.
So it sounds like it's a lot about our hormones, because if you're going nonstop, then your hormones are at a certain level. And then when you get to bed, they can't. And the same thing with light. Light, it signals the hormones that, oh, this is the beginning of your day. Now we're going to start. We know that in 16 hours, you should be ready for bed. What are some of the things that, other than caffeine, and we talked about alcohol, and I want to talk about it a little bit more because people think it's good for sleep, but it's actually sort of, as sleeping pills are, it seems like it's a sedation rather
Right.
than a sleep. And I learned that from you. Thank you, from researching you. What are some of the things, like we've heard a lot about turning off those blue lights that are devices 2 hours before, getting the temperature right, the darkness right, the sound quiet. Tell us about those things that we can read about in self-help magazines about how to get a better sleep. Do those work?
They work if you don't have insomnia.
Ah, okay, because insomnia is triggered by stress.
Like if you ask somebody that has insomnia what they do in order to sleep, they're going to give you a long list. Oh, my room's 68. I do my meditation. I take a hot bath. I take my magnesium supplement. I do da, 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 da. And then you ask somebody who doesn't, they're like, what do you mean? I watch a show and I get in bed and close my eyes. And so this laundry list of sleep hygiene, which there's a time and a place for that. It does help with the quality of our sleep 100%, but it doesn't help with insomnia. It creates more anxiety, more pressure, more grasping, more trying to sleep, which actually is counterintuitive and leads to less sleep. For those people that don't have insomnia, doing these things, sleep hygiene, can help with the quality and depth of your sleep, meaning you're getting more deep sleep, more REM sleep. The quality of your sleep will increase as a result of practicing sleep hygiene. So it really, I always feel so bad for people that have insomnia and they go online or they listen to podcasts and they're like, I'm doing everything right. I don't understand. I do all these things and I'm still not. And it's because there's so much pressure and there's so much trying to control sleep, and sleep's something that happens. You can't control it. And so so depending on who I'm speaking to, certain advice can be extremely helpful, or it can be actually something that keeps you from making progress.
Yeah, I've heard you say that we can't force sleep, that we have to allow it. But how do we do that when we're anxious about not falling asleep naturally?
The first thing is, without awareness, you can't change. So it's creating the awareness around, well, what are you telling yourself, or what is the story or the thoughts that are creating the anxiety that then has your body responding in a state of threat? So it could be, usually it sounds like this for most people. If I don't sleep, then I'm going to look tired. I'm going to feel tired. I'm not going to be able to show up for my kids. I'm not going to be able to focus at work. I am going to be in physical pain. I'm going to be more anxious. They're thinking about all of the things, which then creates a release of cortisol, a release of adrenaline, which then leads to less sleep, which then is a self-fulfilling prophecy. So, and then it's a cycle. The less you sleep, the more stress you experience. The more stress you experience, the less you sleep. And then people find themselves on this unfortunate hamster wheel. And until they come across, information, hopefully that this conversation, people stay stuck on that for decades. And then they're on all kinds of pills. Those pills stop working or they need to take more of them. It's a tragedy. It's a real tragedy. And it doesn't have to be that way. Because if you can understand how your mind gets in the way of your body doing what it's designed to do, and start to understand your mind at a deep level and change your mind, then your body responds. Your body knows how to sleep. It wants to sleep. It's just our minds get in the way.
So do you recommend something like writing before bed, or how do we lose that story in our head that you were talking about that gives us so much anxiety about how terrible it is if we don't sleep at this time?
Yeah. So for the first step is identify what that story is.
Hmm.
You could write it out. And then there's a lot of techniques and strategies that, from there you could reframe it. You could ask yourself, is it true? You could, how do you respond or react when you believe that to be true? So there's a lot of different sort of inquiry that can help you gain perspective that can then help your body drop into a relaxed place, which creates the greatest opportunity for sleep to happen.
I
So
was I was thinking about each night, write down whatever's happened during the day. If we carry that story, well, we have unresolved stuff during the day that we, like you said, we carry our day into our night. Is that all? Is that an insomniac, or is that just a sleeper who has a bad night?
that's just being a human.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I mean it's very helpful to have to have what we call it a bed buffer. We like to use little fun terms for help people remember this kind of stuff. So a bed buffer it's a closure of your day and as you enter into your night. So for instance, if you know have a routine to end your day. So it's like no more work. I'm not thinking about work. I'm not gonna, answer emails, check my whatever it is. Like we need to separate our day from our night. And if we don't do that, the body's going to respond and then it might be a challenge for sleep to happen. So a bed buffer is just whatever time that is for you, you decide, hey, I'm shutting it down. And now it's my time to focus on my family, my hobbies, my relationships, whatever else you want to focus on outside of work.
And if it's TV, is that bad? Like that blue light that they tell us about, is that, or you mentioned earlier that that might just be something that is harmful to insomniacs, not people.
There's two things with technology and sleep. The first thing is, yes, these devices emit wavelengths, blue light frequencies that get in the way from the body releasing melatonin. There's a lot of science to support that. Also, the type of content that we consume creates certain responses in the body. For example, if you're watching an episode of Friends, which is like, just a fun light show, or Seinfeld, which is essentially about nothing, it's different than if you were watching a thriller or a murder series. Your body is actually going to respond differently to those different types of content. So it's not just what you do, it's what type of content are you consuming that will have an effect on your sleep. Does that make sense?
Oh, totally. It completely
Yeah.
makes sense. Because I've woken up in the night kind of thinking about what I watched, and it's usually a stress response to a crime show.
Yeah. Or the worst thing, Alexandra, the absolute worst thing that anyone can do is
Okay.
watch the news right before they go to sleep or watch the news in bed. It is the worst thing, and people are just addicted to it. They just can't let it go. They have to know what's going on, and it's all negative, and it creates fear, it creates doubt, it creates worry, and it is so counterproductive. So counterproductive. It really is. The fear that gets, so, if you consume news during like your lunch period or like lunch, great. Now your body has a lot of time between consuming all that negativity, doubt, and worry about what's going on in the world to process that so that you're not thinking about it, worrying about the election, worrying about the war, worrying about, global warming, all these things that we have no control over anyway, that people worry about. And it's not necessary. It really isn't.
Did you know that as we age, our bodies produce less collagen? This vital protein that keeps our skin firm and supports muscles and joints starts to dwindle, leaving us with a few more laugh lines and a bit less bounce in our step. But there's good news. Yes. With vegan collagen, you can naturally replenish this essential building block and get your glow back. Through innovative extraction techniques from nutrient-rich broccoli and carrots, they've crafted 100% plant-based collagen that effectively reduces the signs of aging. It supports skin hydration, enhances joint flexibility, and strengthens hair and nails, so you can look and feel fabulous. And the best part, there are no chemicals, no preservatives, and absolutely no animal products, just pure plant-based goodness. So stay youthful, stay active, and choose Veg Collagen. Elevate your daily routine and let nature help you shine from the inside out. You're just gonna go to vegnutrition.com. That is VEDGE nutrition.com and use code S, the number 4G, for 30% off. Right? You got it. One more time, vegnutrition.com and use code S4G for 30% off your order. Now back to the episode.
You mentioned the bed. I've heard that for better sleep, it's important to use the bed just for sex and sleep. Is that true? And to spend as little time in it or on it, unless you're doing those things?
Yes, 100%. That's one of the big mistakes people that are not sleeping enough or have insomnia make, is they spend too much time in bed, not asleep. There's something called sleep efficiency, which is the measure of time in bed asleep. We want our sleep efficiency to be high. And if we're not sleeping, it's counterintuitive. We think, well, if I'm not sleeping or not sleeping enough, I should spend more time in bed. It's the exact opposite. It's the exact opposite, because you're anchoring your bed with wakefulness or thinking or trying to sleep or worrying about sleep or worrying about life or whatever it is. The last thing you want to do in bed besides watch the news is try to sleep or worry.
So if we wake up in the middle of the night and maybe 10 minutes goes by where we can't get back to sleep, or you kind of have an idea that you can't get back to sleep anyway. So you don't even have to sometimes wait 10 minutes, but should you get up
Yes.
and do something restful?
Yes. In a different place. That's not your bed. Yeah. So I call this, again, another little fun term I have just to help people remember, the bed exit strategy. So if you wake up in the middle of the night, or if you lay down and sleep doesn't happen within 20 minutes, don't look at the clock first and foremost, because that's just going to start a clock in your head. Oh my gosh, now I have 5 more hours and then I have to get up, or 3 more, or whatever it is. So just feel what that feels like. If it feels like you're, agitated or you're activated, we use the word activated, which just means like you kind of feel like a sense of tension, contraction, pressure maybe in your body or in your mind. Then if sleep doesn't happen, then just get out of bed. Get out of bed. Get out of bed, go to your place, low lit place somewhere in your home. Maybe it's a chair, maybe it's a couch, and do something restful. Maybe it's stretch, pray, meditate, knit, do laundry. Doesn't matter. Do that thing though, not so that you go back to sleep. Just do it to do it. Because if you do it with the expectation of, oh, I'm going to do this, and by me doing this, then it's going to help me get back to sleep. Now you're creating pressure, expectation, which then the body responds to that by releasing cortisol and a little bit of adrenaline, which then keeps you up. So, so it's not just what we do, it's how we think about what we do. That absolutely makes the difference. And most people don't realize that. So you really have to understand how to think about things. And if you understand how to think about things, and then you're doing things that actually are the things that create the highest opportunity for sleep to happen, sleep happens.
What about, okay, so I do take magnesium biglycinate before bed because I heard that it was good. And I did go through a period where I was waking up a lot and not being able to go back to sleep. And I didn't like that. And I'm past menopause, but I know that my progesterone cream helps.
Yes.
But so magnesium, and then I also drink chamomile tea just because I like tea and as I said, I don't do caffeine. So I figure, well, I'll just do chamomile instead of hibiscus because I've heard chamomile's also good. So I'm just trying to stack it. But last night I was in bed and I realized, oh, I didn't take my magnesium glycinate. And guess what? I had a great night's sleep. So I'd like to know from you, what do you think of things like chamomile tea, magnesium, the magnesium that you mentioned before, melatonin, these supplements that are quote unquote natural ways to get to sleep, and then we'll go into the less natural like sleeping pills.
Yeah, so supplements are the right supplements from the right place are great. Most of us are deficient in magnesium anyway. So, that can be very helpful. Vitamin D, most people are deficient in vitamin D. That's a hormone that can be helpful. Um, it's how you think about these things. If you think that I'm going to take this pill and then it's going to help me sleep, well, that's dangerous. So, so take it because it's good for your health is the best mindset to have versus taking it because you think it's going to be the thing that puts you to sleep. So there are things, herbs and tinctures and amino acids and things that can be helpful for relaxing the body and the mind. L-theanine, chamomile tea, that has an active ingredient in it. If you get high quality tea, there's, GABA supplements, there's melatonin supplements, which I'm not a huge fan of. There's CBD.
Mm-hmm.
There is kava kava. There is passion flower, and there's a ton of different natural remedies that can help the body and mind relax. Those are things, those are tools. They can be helpful, and they're not the thing that if you really are struggling with your sleep is going to be the answer. That's just
Right.
a great, honest truth.
Tell us why you don't like melatonin.
So, well, it's a hormone. And so it's one thing, it's in the EU, it used to be regulated. I actually don't know if it's still regulated, meaning you need a prescription in order to take it. And there are conflicting studies. Some say that it can disrupt your body's natural production of producing melatonin. It's an amazing antioxidant. I think it could be used as an antioxidant for certain health conditions. I've heard a lot of really good things. Um, there's also a meta-analysis, which is, the study of all the studies about something that show that it really doesn't help with sleep. It's more of it sets the timing for sleep. That's why it's helpful for using it for jet lag. It's not really meant to be used as a sleeping aid. It's meant to help trigger the body to calibrate to a new time zone. So I don't know. I don't feel comfortable supplementing with a hormone. And I don't recommend that other people do it because I'm more on the better to be safe than pump yourself with something that you're not really sure what it's going to do or how much is even in the supplement for that matter.
Yeah, I don't take melatonin for those reasons too. I have heard negative things, so I I don't do them. And I also do not and have never done sleeping pills, um, because I've heard that they actually don't give you restorative sleep. Tell us about sleeping pills and how they work on us and why you wouldn't recommend them.
Yeah, so it's not that I wouldn't recommend them. I think there's a time and a place for sleeping medication. The thing is that most people and most of these medications, and this isn't medical advice. This is just me giving you education here. Most people don't realize that sleeping medication is only meant to be prescribed for a few weeks. And what happens is people then get addicted to them and beg their doctor to continue to write scripts. And your doctor, they have 15 minutes with you and they're just like, oh my gosh, this poor person. Here's a script for fill in the blank, Ambien, Lunesta, Trazodone, whatever it is, right? Klonopin. And so what it does, these medications, these pharmaceutical drugs, they sedate us. There's a difference between sedation and sleep. And I like to give the analogy of if somebody came and just knocked you out with, they clocked you out and then they put you in a bed and they covered you up with covers and you looked really relaxed. Somebody might walk into your room and be like, "Oh, peaceful sleep." No, there's a difference between being knocked out and natural sleep.
Mhm.
And so a lot of these drugs, not all of them, but most of them, what they do is they don't allow us to get into the deeper stages of natural sleep. And because they don't allow us to get into the natural stages of sleep, we never feel refreshed. And then we a lot of these drugs become addictive, and you need to continue to take more of them, higher doses to have the same effect. And then eventually they stop working. And then when they stop working, then you go to another drug, and then you're going from drug to drug. And there's a lot of side effects, and there's a lot of long-term health studies that show that these pharmaceutical drugs are linked to an increased risk of all-cause mortality, cancer, Alzheimer's, the things that really we're all trying to avoid to live a long, happy, healthy life. So it's just the answer isn't in a pill. It's a Band-Aid. Not to say again, there is a time and a place for sleeping medication.
When would that be? Would it be, does it help reset if you're,
If you're, yeah, so if you're somebody who, like we help people at Sleep Science Academy that literally have been 4 days no sleep at all. I'm talking 4 days. I mean, at that point, it gets pretty dangerous, pretty dangerous. So at that point, it's like, hey, let's, being sedated is a step in the right direction for someone that has that level of extreme sleeplessness. And so, some people are extremely anxious. They have a high level of anxiety, a high level of cortisol, and if their doctor is, referring them to something that's going to help sort of just calm them down, it can help them get to a baseline to then do the work that actually they need to do in order to address what's creating the anxiety or panic. So, depending on how heightened your stress state is, those types of medications can be helpful. Again, I'm not giving medical advice here. This is just education. So always talk to your doctor and get second opinions in regards to medication. And I always recommend people to get educated about the medication that they're taking. There's a great website called Just the Inserts, and you could go on that website and it'll show you the side effects. It'll show you the studies linked to that specific medication. Just educate yourself. Don't just, doctors are amazing and they're incredibly well trained. And thank God we have them. And a lot of times they are not educated they don't have time to be educated in all of the things that they're prescribing. So, be a responsible patient and understand that when you take something, do your own research. Don't just trust somebody because they have a white coat. They're well intended, but work with your doctor. Don't just, that's my advice. And we have so many amazing doctors out there that are doing amazing work. And I think it's more patients need to take responsibility for their own health so that we can have better outcomes.
are there sleep doctors? Because I don't think any of my doctors would have a, a millionth of the knowledge that you have about sleep.
Well, thank you. Oh, yeah, there are sleep doctors. Yeah, so there are sleep doctors. The most of the sleep doctors that you get, and I've looked into this, they're gonna be able to prescribe you sleeping medication. They're gonna be able to write you a script for sleep apnea or sleep study or conduct, and that's what they know. They know how
Mhm.
to prescribe, and then they know how to read results around a sleep apnea test. And again, those two things, there's a time and a place for those things. And thank God we have people that are educated that can do those things. And in my experience, sleep is much more complex than just that. And so, so it is important to, I think, just be educated. Most doctors don't get any very little sleep education or nutrition education for that matter. And that is changing, thankfully. But again, doctors go to school and they learn how to write prescriptions or perform surgeries, and that's amazing. And so it's up to us to learn about these other things that have just as much of an impact on our health and well-being as, some of the things that a doctor would offer traditionally.
They're now probably realizing the effects of high blood sugar and blood pressure, I think, from lack of sleep.
Yes. Yes, for sure. So there was actually a study done that was conducted, and it showed that people that had less than, I believe it was 5 or 6 hours, if you took their insulin before that night of sleep, they would have been, perfectly normal, not pre-diabetic. After that night of just one night of sleep, your insulin level can be thrown off to show that you're like pre-diabetic. So it has a tremendous impact on our. That's why actually maybe you've had this experience. And I'll ask you, have you ever had the experience of you don't sleep really well, and then the next day you really are like craving sugar and fat, and like no matter how much you eat, you're still hungry? Have you ever had that experience?
Yeah. I always thought it was because I was trying to give myself energy through sugar.
Yes, yes, and ghrelin and leptin, those are the two hormones that signal, hey, it's time to eat, and hey, you've ate enough, it's time to stop eating. Those get thrown off, as well as insulin gets thrown off. And when we have hypo, low blood sugar, then the body's like craving food. And then what happens is we're eating the sugar and fat because we need energy, but then our body doesn't know when to stop because that leptin isn't being signaled. And so there's a lot of studies that link, obesity, weight gain with lack of sleep. And I've seen this with our own clients, people that have amazing routines. They're eating healthy, they're moving their bodies, they can't seem to lose weight. And they have sleep challenge. And then once they start to sleep, all of a sudden the weight comes off.
Yeah. And people on night shifts and things also struggle with weight often. I heard this story. Was about a gentleman. He was being interviewed and he was a DJ and they had a competition where he stayed up for 8 days on the radio. And I can't remember exactly the mechanics of the competition, but he had a skill of being able to not sleep very much. He didn't felt like he didn't need to. And he was young then. And staying up for 8 days screwed up his sleep so badly that now, as an older gentleman in his 60s or 70s, he was an insomniac. And it felt like it was something chemical that happened to him. And I have a friend, Linda, who says she's never been a good sleeper. And it just makes me wonder if some people have a chemical issue. What are your thoughts? Have you heard that?
Yeah, I would
For
say that like
SEALs, Navy SEALs, people who, are kept up in their training for days and days and days, that it can really screw them for years and years.
yeah, I think that it's very rare. A lot of times people think that there's a physiological reason why they're not sleeping, and it's actually a psychological behavior reason,
Mm,
not a physiological reason. It's more learned.
mm,
And so there are instances where people have, fatigue GABA receptors in the brain because they've been taking a bunch of medication, and, amino acid therapy can be helpful for that, right? Very rare cases.
mm,
Very rare. I would say most people that come to us, they think that they have something physically or medically wrong with them. And what they soon realize, either I say, hey, go and get MRI, blood tests, CAT scan, go get your workup, just go prove to yourself that there's nothing medically wrong or no brain tumor or whatever it is. And so some people actually take that advice and they go do it all and they come back and they said, the doctors, all the scans, everything looks fine. So in a lot of cases, it's it's people's misperception of thinking that if you're not sleeping, it's a medical problem. And in most cases, it is not a medical problem. It's a behavioral
mm.
and psychological challenge. It's a 24-hour challenge. It's actually not a bedtime disorder, insomnia, in most cases.
Oh yes, I like the way you say that 24-hour challenge instead of just a 9 p.m. problem or a 10 p.m. problem. Um, my mom used to take pot paste, a paste of marijuana stuff before she went to bed, and that helped her sleep. I mentioned before that she has trouble sleeping. And also people drink. Can you talk to us about those smoking or ingesting pot and alcohol, how they should or should not be used to sleep help?
So alcohol is a sedative, and it does help you fall asleep, but unfortunately gets in the way of the quality of our sleep. It's also a diuretic. It also, dehydrates us. And so usually you wake up because you're dehydrated, and it's also you're not getting into the deeper stages of sleep, and it can throw off your hormones, right? So it's not an ideal thing to do before bed. Having a nightcap, once in a while, sure, but having it, consistently using, some type of alcohol in order to sleep isn't ideal. It's just, one, it can become a problem, meaning like you can become an alcoholic, and that does happen. Um, and similar with marijuana, the research shows that THC, which is the active constituent in marijuana that makes us feel high, that gets in the way of specifically the REM stage of sleep. And that's an important stage of sleep. And so, yes, marijuana can help us feel relaxed. It can help us, especially if it's like an indica versus a sativa strand. It can relax the body. It can reduce stress, which is good things. And I think there's a lot of benefits to consuming marijuana in a conscious way. And it gets in the way of the deeper stages of sleep.
What do you think of the snooze button and alarms? How do they
Yeah.
start our day, and should we use them?
Yeah. So again, in a perfect world, we would be going to sleep when our bodies gets naturally tired, and waking up when our bodies, as the sun rises, or just naturally waking up. We don't live in a perfect world. So my recommendation, if you need to wake up at a certain time to start your day, because you got to get the kids out the door, you got to get yourself ready, or whatever it is, invest in a alarm clock that, number one, has a soft tone, not
Mhm.
this crazy tone that puts stress in us. And number two, if you get, there's these great alarm clocks that have a light feature where it starts to slowly light up the room.
Oh
And
gosh, that is such, my husband has that because he has to get up at 5:10 2 mornings a week. So we use that and it's amazing. You don't feel shocked. And then the light
yes,
comes up over a period of like 10 minutes, I think.
yes,
Then you have then he has birds tweeting. So it's
perfect. Is it a Philips, or do you know what kind of alarm clock it is? And
I'm
there's
sorry, I don't, but you
okay.
recommend them to our audience because we thought it was an amazing purchase, so much better than the watch, the alarm on your phone or a regular alarm
Yes.
clock, which can be really not a great way to start your day.
Yeah, so I would say for the younger listeners, and I'll tell you why I say the younger listeners, the Lofty clock is really cool. It's a little bit techy. So for people that aren't really that great with technology, like hooking things up to Wi-Fi and all that, I would steer away from the Lofty. The thing that I like about the Lofty is not only does it look really sleek, but it has bedtime stories, it has bedtime meditation. It looks, and it has all these, tones that are really nice. Then there's the Hatch is another very popular one. Philips, there's a Philips alarm clock. I don't know the exact model, but there's a lot of, if you go on Amazon and you do like circadian alarm clock, you'll get a whole list. And they vary in price. So, but I think that is a good investment. If especially if you use it every day rather than use your phone, it's a much healthier way of being pulled out of sleep, for sure.
I've never used the snooze button because I was told when I was like 23 by my boyfriend Barry that if you use the snooze button, then you're going to be more tired in the morning. And that kind of, and also it's stressful to know that the snooze button's going to go off in a few minutes anyway.
Yes.
So I
Yeah.
figure I'll just get up. So tell us your thoughts on the snooze button.
Yeah. I mean, it's to help your circadian rhythm stay synced, or you could say healthy. You want to really make sure that you get up around the same time every day. And that means not snoozing. It means, get up, get out of bed when so the snooze button, unfortunately, is not a good habit to fall into. As best you can, it'd be great to go to bed around the same time as well. So again, the body loves consistency. It loves consistency. So if you can create consistency in your sleep schedule, and even better, if you can honor your natural circadian chronobiology, then you're really setting yourself up for success. So
Share with us about your programs and what people can find on your sites, and if they, join any of your the sessions that you teach.
Yeah, so we have at Sleep Science Academy, our main program is an 8-week online program that is a combination of education and support. So we have a team of coaches that work with our clients once a week. We use the Aura Ring to measure and track everything so people can see as they're implementing the psychological and behavioral changes, they could see that it's working. And we also can kind of see how to support people and personalize someone's journey and approach because we could see it in the data. And then we also have a community aspect to our program, which I find very helpful. So most people that we work with, they feel like they're physically broken, they feel very alone, and they feel like their situation is unique.
Mm.
And having a community of people that are all going through exactly what you're going through helps you understand that you're not broken, you're not alone, and that what you're experiencing isn't unique. You're unique. How you got here is unique. And so we do these community sessions. I lead them once a week, and they're very helpful for clients.
And where can our listeners and our watchers, because we have a very popular YouTube channel, find you?
Yes, sleepscienceacademy.com. And I have a YouTube channel where I put a lot of free content out. Um, and yeah, that's where you can find me.
And devinburke.com too, right? I think.
Yeah, that's kind of like my personal sort of page, if you will. But for the purposes of this conversation, Sleep Science Academy is the best one to go to.
Right. Yes, your YouTube channel has a lot of really interesting, short and sweet recommendations to get better sleep. So I really enjoyed going through that too. And so thank you so much for being, and it'll be in the show notes, folks, all those URLs. But thank you so much for being on the show today, Devin. I've learned a lot, and I think our audience has too.
Great. Well, hopefully I didn't put them to sleep on the conversation, but hopefully tonight they'll sleep better as a result of listening to the conversation.